Hey, welcome everyone today to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is Craig Doman, your host, and I've got a young lady, Tiffany McQuaid. Tiffany is an author. She's a marketer. She's a business owner. She's a real estate broker. Tiffany, welcome to Pro Mindset today. And why don't you share with our audience what else you do?
Well, the question really is, what don't I do? I kind of had this pact with myself that I was going to take advantage and utilize every gift that I see it as, every gift that I've been given, before at my end of time to be able to exhaust everything and give back. I do a lot of things, including a children's book that just launched a few weeks ago. So that ties back to the other book, but helping kids kind of get through some of the same issues that we face as adults, but through a little character by the name of Hope and her little dog, Penny.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, let's take a step back.
Okay.
And why don't you introduce yourself and share what is your story? What is that's relevant to what we're going to talk about today with mindset, with your books, with your marketing, with your leadership, those types of things.
Okay. Well, I am born and raised in Ohio, so a big Buckeye fan, and living now in sunny Naples, Florida for 23 years. And I like to say that Ohio was a great place to be from and to be raised, but Florida truly is home. There's something to be said for your mindset, when you're in sun and warmer temperatures, it gives you a little more energy and really helps encourage you along the way to success in whatever avenue of life you're in. So today we're going to unlock some keys from what I'm understanding that tie back to my book, The Nth Degree, but also go back through some of the hardships and things that I've overcome that as an entrepreneur, I think there's some voids. Both I've recognized it in my business, which is highly competitive, and I've kind of specialized in growing my business and filling those voids. But secondly, filling voids in terms of what you have to offer, what is unique to you, and how you go about kind of conveying authenticity in yourself and your business that makes a connection. And that's all by going in. And that's the difference. A lot of people don't do that. So I think we're going to unfold that a little bit today, right?
We are. So let's dive into your book, The Nth Degree.
Okay.
What's the theme of that book, and what is the lesson that people are going to learn, and what is the journey you take them on so that you can help them understand your concept of the Nth Degree?
Yeah. Well, my journey actually started very young, and it actually starts in chapter 1 or key 1, which is intrepidness. So all the keys start with the word in, and they're all kind of the 7 categories and keys that I know have been so powerful and pivotal in my life. So it's everything from intrepidness to intention to invigoration to inspiration and influence. There's so many different categories, but those are the keywords that really helped me. Kind of starting off chapter 1, it starts off kind of with a very challenging situation that I had when I was 10. And that was my mother and father had divorced. And this is circa 1980. It was a different time then, right? And my mom and dad had just divorced, and it was final the month before. And he was really kind of struggling with it. And speaking of mindset, mentally, he just kind of let the negative get to him and he rested in it. And on Christmas Day, 1980, he chose to take his life. And that was such an impactful and powerful change and trajectory, not only for me, but my 5-year-old sister and my mom, who now, was just single mom to us. So as I evolved through that, and probably the most powerful part was recognizing 2 things, actually. Recognizing them, okay, as you get older, you really start to pay attention to things. And, what was his mindset at that point? That he felt that vulnerable and weak, to do something like that in that moment. I understand holidays can be hard on everyone, but allowing his mind to kind of overtake him and seeing no hope, no solution, no desired or positive outcome. And I think I kind of from that point forward evolved through my life, like always wanting to help, always trying to, because I would see my mom, struggling. She'd come home from work, working full time, trying to raise us. And, she'd come home just exhausted and would cry some days. And I knew that I had the capacity to be able to turn that around for her a little bit, even if it was just fleeting. If it was, she always said my smile brought her joy, or, if I'd clean the house before she'd get home, or make sure that the dishes were washed before a dishwasher, right? Do special little things that would help lift her a little bit and, not feel so hopeless. So as I kind of evolved through my journey, I realized from that one little case scenario, the power that we have with our mindset to choose every day. You get up, you have a choice. Am I going to be positive today, or am I going to be negative? Am I going to rest in the one thing that I went to bed with that was maybe weighing heavy on me and focus in on that? Or am I going to start my day fresh and start with the top 3 or 5 things that bring me joy? And looking at my little dog Penny's face, realizing that the sun came up, that I'm awake, that I have wellness inside of me. And, I love my home and I love where I live. And, you just kind of go through that list. And I usually sometimes will even drive to the office just going through gratitude, loads of gratitude while I'm driving. Thank you for the easy drive today. Thank you for the fact that I was able to breeze through that light and it didn't turn red on me and shave some time off my drive. Thank you for getting me to the office safe. Thanks for the front parking space that I never get. Thank you for the friend who brought me a nice warm coffee that day, or, put a nice little note on my door. There's so many amazing things that happen to us every day, all day. And we forget to stop and talk about them. Yes.
I want to jump in. I want to go back.
Okay.
Let's go back to Christmas Day.
Okay. Oh, you're going to make me relive this.
No, I want to learn something. Okay. So how was your father's suicide communicated to you at 10? And how do you process it differently today?
Okay. That's brilliant question. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Brilliant question, because it's 2 entirely different things. So when I was 10 and Christmas Day, after the police came and showed up to my aunt's house to speak with my mom, because we had gone to her house for Christmas dinner. And, that morning we had tried to call him, after we opened our gifts from Santa. It was early. And he didn't answer, and we really didn't think anything about it, at that point, because it was early, right? So as the day unfolded and we didn't hear from him, we went to her house for dinner, and the police show up, share it with my mom. And I'll never forget my mom just kind of crumbling down in the corner of the dining room. And I thought, I remember knowing that whatever it was really bad. And she came in and grabbed my sister and I and took us into my aunt's bedroom. We sat on the floor in a little circle. And she proceeded to say that, Dad was not well. He was sick and that he passed away. And she kind of and she said, but don't worry, we're going to be okay. We've got each other. We're going to be okay. And I think, at 10, it was an interesting thing to process, because, he really didn't know. I'd never known anyone that had died, at that point. And the next day, this is where the powerful shift happens. The next day, I was in our bathroom, which connected to my mom's bedroom. It's the only bathroom in the house. And the door to her bedroom was open and she didn't know it. And she was on the phone with one of her best friends. And she was sharing the story. And I kind of crouched down and eavesdropped and heard the whole story, that he was a chemist and that he took cyanide and left a note and, some jewelry for her and for us. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, number one, I'm hearing something that I'm not supposed to be hearing. Number two, I'm eavesdropping on her call. She's going to kill me. And number three, I thought, I can't tell anyone that I know this. So I suppressed it. I kept it inside. I never told anyone. Nobody knew that I knew the reality of the dynamic. And that's a very difficult thing for a young girl, to keep. I finally told her my second year of college. I finally told her, that I knew. By that point, I was living away, so she couldn't ground me for life. At that point, it was a hard thing. And I think that in doing that, and holding that so tight, there's a lot that I've had to process in adulthood, in working through that, in knowing that someone so important to you chooses to leave for whatever their reason is. It is very hard not to take it personally. So I'm
Let me ask you a couple
processing.
more questions here.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to ask you a couple more questions.
Sure.
When did you tell your sister?
Interestingly, when I told my mom that I knew, that's when I told my sister. So, and it ignited in her kind of some reaction because we were 5 years apart and we were never really close when we were young. We're very close now as adults, but that 5-year gap is a big one. So I'm away in college. She finds out I'm gone and I'm the one who really kind of took care of the family. I took care of the house. I took care of her. I cooked. I got us to dance. To our dance classes, I took care of all that. I was, as my mom always said, I was her right arm, and then I was gone. And then that comes out and, she had a very big reaction. And I'm not here to tell her story, but, there was a lot of difficulty. But I'll tell you, she completely turned her life into this massive, amazing trajectory as well, and she now runs the National Inventors Hall of Fame and does like all these amazing things. So, I think that out of the circumstances, although we both found out differently, we were able to gain strength and the mental capacity to move forward and turn it into a positive and make it something bigger and better than we could have ever dreamed, and use it as a catapult as opposed to stepping back into the story.
Okay, Tiffany, I'm going to batter you with questions because I've got a lot of questions.
Boy, I didn't think that this was going to be like an Oprah interview of emotion.
Hey, I'm so sorry. I just, I just go where I go. I flow where you go.
That's okay. I'm all in.
At what time in your life and in what situation in your life did you finally identify with your father's hopelessness?
Well, that's actually a fantastic question too. I think sometimes it's always been there. It's hard. It has been hard for me to work through from a young girl, when things go wrong or they go bad or they don't go you see fear and failure and things. Especially when I was young. Now that I'm older, I've trained my mental muscles, so I'm way different now. But it was very hard for me to get out of that feeling of hopelessness. It was very easy for me to just think, well, maybe that's my calling. Maybe that's the path I'm supposed to follow too. Or maybe it's inherited. So you start thinking all of these crazy, crazy things. And it wasn't until I started getting older, that I realized, number one, I appreciated my mother so much more, although she passed away 24 years ago. But I appreciated her so much more because in that horrible dynamic, she had the strength and the wherewithal to never, ever, ever speak negatively of him to us. She was always supportive and encouraging and amazing. Oh, I mean, I think it would be very easy for people to fall back into a, oh, well, he left us or, being victimized. And that isn't what she showed us. She showed us strength. She made sure that every Christmas that we turned that dynamic, I'm so sorry, turned that dynamic around and gave back. We would cut off every year. We'd go get a real Christmas tree. She'd cut off part of it, attach a bow. We'd take it to the cemetery. And then we would adopt a family every year. And although we didn't have much ourselves, and she would adopt a family, we would all go through the process together to get the gifts. And then Christmas Eve, we would go drop them all off, all the food and, gifts to them and do it together. So she showed us so much that evolved through, as we've gotten older.
Your mother apparently did a wonderful job of reframing Christmas for you.
Thank you.
And
oh my gosh.
Turned it from like one of the most, catastrophic or traumatic days to a happy day because you served others and you thought of others.
Yeah.
Do you have kids?
I do not. My sister has a son, so I have a nephew.
You have a nephew. Okay. So how do you, like when you're in college, go back to college?
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to figure everybody out. Like, what's your story? Where are you from? What's your number? You said early off air, you went to Youngstown University. So you're in Youngstown and you're at a bar, you're at a fraternity party, sorority party, whatever.
Was it plenty of those?
What did your dad do? What's your dad do?
Yeah.
How did you deal with that question?
Yeah.
So that you could not be a, buzzkill and also respect your dad?
Yeah. My answer was always, unfortunately, he passed away when I was 10. And I would always just kind of leave it at that. There were very few people that would question it beyond that, probably not wanting to open a can of worms or know anymore. So I really, as a matter of fact, even friends of mine in high school and stuff will say now, because I finally just shared the story, just a few years ago for the first time ever. And it was the day after Kate Spade took her life. And I've always carried Kate Spade bags. And for whatever reason, her doing that, and she had a daughter pretty much the same age as I was, at that time. And it really hit me because that very, day before I was carrying my Kate Spade bag, and find that out. And the next morning I wrote and kind of penned this post that I put out on social media because I thought, this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I wrote it, we all have baggage, just wrote it, shared my story. And at the end, I just talked about everyone, what if we all loved a little harder? What if we were a little kinder to each other? What if we were a little more supportive and picked up that phone a little more when we think of someone? What if that it would give us more power in spades is, how I wrote it, and that maybe more of our loved ones would be around. What if?
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. In your book, The Nth Degree, which word exemplifies your mom the best and why?
Well, I would say probably influence, but also, definitely influence without a doubt. She did something, which I do reference in the book. She did something so amazing. And excuse me, it's actually something that I hope that more people do, in their lives. Before she passed away, and unfortunately she was battling cancer, but had the wherewithal to go and get both my sister and I these notebooks. And these beautiful notebooks that have beautiful messaging on them. And over a period of months, she would just go in and write whatever she thought of, whatever popped up in her head. We had no idea that she did this until after she passed. And it has been the best gift And it's little words of wisdom from him. It's recollections of things. But just having that, I cherish it, and seeing her handwriting. It's the best gift I've ever received.
And you can go to it anytime you want.
Anytime you want. I seriously did not think that we were going to deep dive like this.
From your best recollection of your father, what word does he exemplify?
Joy. He was always making people smile, always making people laugh, loving hard, always brought joy. So that's why you just never know. You never know. You never know.
We never know. Today could be our last day. We don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One of our last day.
I mean, something as simple as a smile to a stranger could be just that one change that gives that little bit of hope. You look nice today, or it's just the little things that change things. And we make it so hard. And it doesn't have to be.
I think today, a lot of people struggle with what your father struggled with. And that is lack of hope. Yeah. It's relationships are hard. Social media makes everybody feel inadequate, feel like we're behind. We're not doing enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do for a living. Comparison is a really, really dangerous concept. When you start looking at other people, you can always identify where you fall short compared to somebody.
Yeah.
It doesn't who you are and how well things are going.
Right.
You can always compare.
Right.
And so the thing that kind of resonates with me in listening to you is the idea that, you wrote a book with the main character called Hope, which is amazing. Because that's what everybody wants. And a lot of times you can't get hope unless you have faith. You have a faith.
Yeah.
You have faith.
You only get faith from gratitude. They're all cyclical, much like joy and enthusiasm go hand in hand. You can't have joy without enthusiastic energy, and vice versa. The two are so important. And, I think people, you're right. You're right in everything you're saying.
And I would say one other thing that is really important for all of us, especially young people, is to detach from our circumstances.
Yes.
Because our situations and our circumstances are going to ebb and flow. They're going to be good days. They're going to be bad days. There's going to be times when we're going to get treated unfairly. We're going to get terminated. Things are going to happen. Excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit of cold. It's when you can tap into who you are and why you're here is where you can get that peace and hope more than looking at, hey, how many dollars did I make this year? How many awards did I get?
Yeah.
What neighborhood did I move into? All those, what kind of notes did I buy? Those things give you temporary joy and temporary satisfaction, but not long lasting.
Yeah. And throw in there, with social media, how many likes do I have? How many followers, and people are judging that way too. There's that whole dynamic as well, which, makes it more difficult. I can't imagine being a child growing up in today's times, truly.
It's got to be nerve-wracking.
Yeah, for the parents, for sure.
I coach my clients on playing an inside game.
Yeah.
And the world teaches you to play an outside game.
Yeah. Social
media is the king of outside games, right? Even LinkedIn and for business people, it's still an outside game, and so many things are measured and sized up by, who you're connected to.
Right. I agree.
May not know the person, maybe never talk to the person.
Yeah.
Connected. You're LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what's the one aspect of your nth degree book What's the one story, the one message, the one lesson that the world needs to hear on this podcast that you would like to share? What's the one tidbit that somebody doesn't read your book, but they learned about you and they learned about your message today?
Yeah. Do you want it to be, because I could go multiple ways with this, so I want to make sure I'm answering it to your viewers. Do you want it from an entrepreneurship or from a personal human aspect?
I'm going to make it tough on you. You get to pick.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. I would say, and this is actually going to cross over too. I've learned over all of my journey, and I talk more about it in the book, but I had more hits on Christmas. So just know that you can come back from anything. And one thing that I've learned on this journey is two things. Number one, when I have failure, I fall down. Whatever happens in my world that knocks me down, I only give myself that day, just that day, to feel sorry for myself. And I will go to bed that night fully immersing myself in the fact that I'm going to get up the next day and it's a new day full of possibility and hope. Done is done. And so I give myself that one day. That's it. I don't allow myself to wallow in the story. I don't go back to the past. And I have trained my mind over the years to really snap out of things much quicker. But the other thing, which I think most people don't talk about, especially in the entrepreneurial journey, you're on this trajectory and you're hoping you're going up, right? You're growing your business, you're growing your product, you're following whatever it is that you're going up. But what people don't talk about is in that growth up, and they always say it's lonely at the top, right? To me, I would like to rework that quote and say it's lonely on your way to the top. Because people don't talk about, and they tend to discount, that as you're going up, you're really hitting levels, you may be going up the side of a cliff and there's like little kickouts that you have to level up to. And with each level, typically, and for me, I have found this, and everyone that I talk to, although they never really processed it, but when you talk to them, they're like, oh, it's like an aha moment, with every single level. Things start coming at you right before you're about to level up. You're getting 1-2 punched with just every obstacle imaginable, negative things, circumstances that feel completely out of your control. Sometimes you feel like you're spiraling out of control and or about to fall way down, but I recognize now that every time that vortex of all these challenges starts to happen, that is when you have to just put your fear shield on. You plow through the fear, you step into it, because there is always something great on the other side. And that is typically the next level. And you'll go through, great things in the next level. And then you're going to hit a whole other mess or shit show of just things coming at you that, again, once you hit that, you're about to level up. When the chaos happens, that's when you truly find the people that are meant to go to the next level with you or not. And people are going to fall off. They're not meant to go every step of the way on the journey. And you may have someone when you start that you think is a diehard, that they're going to be with you, to the very end. You're in this together. And then something happens, maybe there's an illness and they can't keep doing it, or maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe there's jealousy or envy that comes into play. Maybe there's just not seeing eye to eye that causes them to fall off. And this will continue to happen on your journey. You can't be afraid of it, but just know that with each level, there's going to be something better and something far greater. But you can't be afraid of the vortex of challenges that will hit you before you level up. And, I think the universe tests your strength before you go to the level. Like or whoever you believe in, your higher power, God, whatever it would be, that They're building strength for you to ensure that when you hit that next level, that you're prepared and you're ready to go. Nobody goes and plays in the Olympic Games without tons of training, tons of effort. Nobody plays in a Super Bowl without, going through a bunch of wins and losses and, blood, sweat, and tears to get there, right? It's the same thing on this entrepreneurial journey. And people tend to forget that. And with each peak, with each level, people fall off and it does get lonely. And it's lonely on the journey at times. But the best part of that loneliness is that you find peace and comfort within yourself. That's why I wrote a book about standing out by going all in, because in that journey, when you allow yourself to just not have people around you just to, not feel lonely or just to have presence, if you truly take the time to relish in that aloneness as a result of the journey, that's when the strength happens. And that is when you really do great things, because you become untouchable. When you're comfortable in your own self, when you're at peace in your own company, and you don't need any, you don't need outside influence, but that you're trusting and listening to your own voice, that's when you go from really good to great. And it helps you continue through those levels where most people fall off. That's why most entrepreneurs fail. I truly believe that it's that inner strength and peace that you have to have in order to keep going. Because otherwise, if you listened to what everybody was saying and you let the impact of people falling off really get to you, you won't make it. Most people don't, it's hard. It's hard, but it's so worth it.
I'm going to regurgitate back what I heard you say.
Yeah.
That the pity party has to be short.
Yeah.
Pity party has to be short. You can have a pity party, but you got to move on. New day, new opportunities, new dreams. And the second one about the ascension, as you're ascending to new levels. I think there's this myth that everybody thinks that when you get to the next level, it's going to be easier. It's going to be smoother. There's more chaos there than there was down below.
Yeah.
So your ability to train for adversity, your ability to train for being at a higher altitude where there's oxygen,
yeah,
will quit, like you said.
Yeah.
But you can train for it. You're not surprised by it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop you. It's just a hurdle.
Yeah.
Jump over it.
Yeah.
And the common denominator for every level, let's say there's 50 levels, just for sake of this. The common denominator on your journey or my journey or anyone else's journey is ourselves. It's we gotta double down on who we are, why we're doing it, what our purpose is, what we're doing it for, how it's going to make a difference on the planet, how it's going to make a difference on your family, how it's going to make a difference for you. Every level, you're the common denominator.
I laugh because I just posted today on social media about the importance of double downing on yourself. Not to always in whatever journey you're in. There's nobody else that how they're going to act, react, what they're going to do. You have no control over anyone. The only person that you can control is you. And if you believe in you, which I certainly hope you do, that everyone listening does, because that's the difference. If you second guess yourself and you don't believe in yourself, how is anyone else going to believe in you? And that's just it. You have to, I say this quite a bit and talk about this quite a bit, because it's almost like you have to visualize in your mind. It's almost like, I like to, if I go get a massage or something, I like to make it like my imagination playtime. I'm very much a visual, a creative anyway. But when I do that, I love to take that time to just, I go in with the topic, okay, I want to do this with the company, or I want to do this, for myself, or this is a goal. And I take that time to literally just visualize, what is that going to look like? If I now am putting myself in this role or to do this or to accomplish this, how's it going to feel when I walk into the office, giving myself this new role or this new opportunity? What's it going to feel like? How do I feel I'm going to be reacted to? Or what are some of the things I'm going to do? What am I going to wear? What's my goal? What am I going to achieve? And I visually map it out. And then I feel like in the real world, I just step into what I've created in my mind, So do you remember Simon and his land of chalk drawings back in the day? There was a show. And it's almost like what Simon used to do. He would draw it out on the chalkboard, and then he would step in. And I feel like that's what I do the majority of the time when, I wrote these books. They were in my head, the intention, the vision of what the messaging and what I was going to do and what I wanted Hope to look like and what I wanted the little stuffed penny dog to look like. It was all mapped out in my head. And then it just becomes a matter of semantics to figure it out. But I think that's kind of part of what's wrong, not wrong, but, in the world today compared to the world that we lived in when we were growing up, we lived in a world of using your imagination. Everything that you did was outside. You created an outside grocery store, with rocks that were meatballs, and you were always using your imagination to keep you busy. The world today, you don't have the imagination. Although you've got the visionary ability, because through AI and all this tech, you can actually see it in front of you. So that's great. But I feel like we've lost the ability to imagine what you desire and really see it play out and then kind of become it, as opposed to having things around us distract us from our desires and our visions and our goals. And we've become a squirrel society. Squirrel, we're distracted, distraction, reaction. That's where we're living right now. So I purposefully and with intention take time, whether it's on a walk or getting a massage or going to get my nails done or whatever is down brain time for me. I use that time to visualize and imagine and create.
That's awesome. I agree with that. I think it is more difficult to visualize today because of the thing we have in our hands, and we've got short clips that we can watch all day long. So you can literally be in the grocery store and get held up for, 2 minutes waiting on somebody at the cashier, and you go on your phone and you're on shorts, so you're doing something, you're scrolling on some social media platform. You never give yourself a chance, visualize and imagine. So I coach my athletes on the process of producing a movie with them as the star of every scene.
I love it.
And it doesn't take very long to do it, but you have to smell the grass. You have to hear the fans. You have to hear the noise in the stands.
Mm-hmm.
Visualize every part of it. It doesn't take very long. You can play a whole game in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can play all the highlights of a game you're about to play in less than a minute in vivid detail.
Yeah.
And so something that hit close to home is when my sons was playing for the Colts against the Vikings, and he visualized that week scoring a touchdown on a block punt. And he scored a touchdown on a block punt. And I don't know how many, and that happened to my own kid. But it's like, I can't tell you how many clients I've talked to where they visualize, it was no surprise to them.
Yeah.
Something really fantastic happens and they are like pinching themselves going, is this real or is this my visualization? Because this happened exactly the way I thought it would happen.
Yeah.
So even in business, whether you're a speaker, whether you're not, whether you're a business person, whether you're in a sales opportunity, visualize that before you get there. And you can go through all the different scenarios, the objections, the obstacles, the haters, whatever you want to call it. You can have a response, an energetic response to that chaos. Let's call it chaos, because it is chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gives your brain the belief that there is a solution to every problem, every scenario.
Yeah.
Because, you're a broker in real estate, and I'm sure you train your people and coach your people in some fashion. It's like people quit too soon.
Without a doubt. And I think people today also think that we are also in a very grass is greener on the other side society, that instead of doing the work necessary to build a good, solid business, you're going to get wooed away by, we'll give you, 1,000 leads a month, or, it's that easy thinking it's going to be easier this way or there or what have you. I do want to say one thing, circling back to what you just said, because that was so powerful, sharing that story about your son. Thank you for that. I really enjoyed that. But thinking about and spinning off of that a little bit, I kind of did the same thing. Well, I did do the same thing for our office, just visualize what is that experience from the moment of impact when someone walks in the door. What is that experience going to be like, and how is it going to be different than everyone else? What's it going to feel like? What am I going to see? What am I going to smell? What am I going to, what is happening that's going to help elevate me and elevate the experience? And that's exactly, what we did. You walk in, we have our own custom scent called Happy Home that is piped through. We have this whole thing full of all these beautiful jars of nostalgic candy. And, it's something very small, but something so very powerful, because when you're walking into an environment, and the music's playing, and it's good, like high energy music, and, you're looking at vibrant colors, and then you see this display of all this candy, not mixed, individual kinds in special individual beautiful glass jars, and you look at it and you say, you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I haven't seen a bit of honey since I was 10. It's all nostalgic items that trigger kind of that mental, kind of that mind belly nostalgic connection that creates comfort and confidence and loyalty at, this is different. It just triggers that this is different moment. This is different from every real estate office that I've ever been in. This is a different feel. What's that smell? We leave the door open and they wafted in, the music's going, it's high energy, upbeat. And again, they're looking at all these things that you don't normally see. And with each glance around, they notice something different, but each one triggers something, a different reflex, or, just an entirely different sense that helps elevate the experience and leave them feeling elevated, as opposed to, oh, here, sign here, give me your name. Here's some properties here. Take this catalog, talk to you later. I'll email you some things. It's about, of course, we're going to do that. That's part of it. That's part of the business. But now you've just had this experience. Oh, would you like a soda? And handing it in a nostalgic, bottle, or a bottled water that's branded to the hilt, It's all of these experiences that help elevate perception of value, number one, connectivity. Do they want to work with you? These things all help elevate that. Why wouldn't you want to work with someone that is in this environment that I feel so good in? And now I'm, eating my Tootsie Rolls and, my bit of honeys, and I'm feeling good. It's heightened awareness. It's connectivity that is different than everything
Here's
else.
my perspective on that, and I agree with you. I think it creates a unique, and it makes them realize that, hey, this is a unique organization, and start looking for ways that you're unique. Just the candy and the smell. But
Right.
the second thing I think it does, it creates an environment of trust, because
Mm-hmm.
like, we're not all business. They're not in here just to get their hands in my pocket and take my money. They're to build a relationship and have an experience. And I think the third thing it does is everybody before they walk in the door has a preconceived idea of what it's going to be like.
Right. Right.
And you kind of blow it up. And so they let their guard down, and they're more open-minded. So you've changed the energy of your prospective clients, as they're letting their walls down because you're unique and trust you, just because of the setting that you've created.
Right.
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 So now the key is, can your people be unique? Can they communicate in a way where they are trusted?
Right.
And can they be open enough, the prospect?
Yep.
What are your fears and doubts and concerns? Because I want to address those bad boys so that we can get rid of those things. We don't have something blocking the relationship.
Well, and the last thing that I would add to that is, can they convert? That's probably the fourth key to what you just said, really, because you can have all of those things, but it all comes down to conversion too,
No, I think conversion is critical, but I think the thing before conversion, at least from my experience in business, is the idea that it has to be the right time, the right property, the right fit, the right price, the right location. All these things have to fit. When they fit, conversion will happen naturally.
Yeah.
I think if somebody's got a concern that's really should not be a concern, that's the inability of the agent to convert.
Right.
But if everything's there, anybody can convert. So it's really creating that environment. So it's not sales.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't have to sell anybody.
Yep.
You just have to see. They just have to see it. That, hey, this is what you told me you wanted. This is where you said you wanted to live. This is the price range that fits your budget, whatever it is. And it becomes...
That's the transition from sales to matchmaking. And that's really what everyone's looking for. Nobody wants to be sold anything, but boy, do they want to find the perfect match, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, I'm going to go back to Tiffany. Give me one trait, one concept that when your days on this planet are gone, your friends, your family, your sister, your nephew, your employees, your agents are going to say about you, and why.
What was the first one that you said?
What concept, trait, characteristic?
The one thing that I would say for sure is, well, I could give you a few, but number one, she never, ever gave up. That's number one. Number two is that, to say about myself, that she always found joy despite or in spite. That would be my one.
Okay, so would it surprise you if both of those go back to your dad, 1980, when he took his life? Because
I never really thought about that.
No, just, we've only been talking for, less than an hour, but that, to me, the genesis, your father gave that to you because, for whatever reason, and he only knows the reason, he gave up. He left a legacy to you that you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right?
He gave me the best gift aside from my mom's special gift. So I got the two best gifts. Thank you for pointing that out. I never thought of it that way. So that's very powerful. Thank you for that.
Well, Tiffany, I want to thank you so much for being on Pro Mindset today.
Oh.
I appreciate your energy, your transparency, your emotion, just your ability to communicate about a very unfortunate situation that happened when you were a young girl.
Thank you.
But I think that, you know, I'm a man of faith. And in Romans 8:28, it says God finds a way to make everything
Yeah.
for our good. And in a very unique way, your Father is still in you.
Yeah.
And he's telling you every day, don't quit, right? So thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I should call you Barbara Walters for making it. Thank you, Barbara. This is not how I thought it was going to go, but I'm very grateful. I learned something today. Thank you.
That's awesome. Hang on. Hey, it's Craig Doman, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.